Gear up as Cash Miller and the team of accomplished guests steer you on an enlightening voyage filled with valuable tips, fresh insights, and effective strategies. Welcome to Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cash Miller. I'm the host of Marketing Masters and the CEO of Titan Digital. Today, we're going to get into a very different subject. We're going to be talking holistic. It's taking a holistic approach to your marketing, campaigns, your website, the different things that you end up doing and looking at it from a whole different point of view. I've got Mike Vinci, Shantytown Design. He uses this approach with his clients at every turn, every chance he gets, because, it's really important, that we take a really, you want to look at your marketing campaigns in a totally different light and a different way. Mike, it's great to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hey, Cash. Thank you for having me here today. So we're Shantytown Design. What that is, we're your design and marketing department. That's kind of our mantra, is that when we're been around for 10 years and now it's really trying to evolve, and we're trying to help you by taking off some of that weight. So it's basically just working with you to be that department for you. Maybe you don't need to hire on that next full-time employee. You have instead a whole team at your disposal to work with. So that's kind of where that steps into that holistic approach, basically.
Okay, so, to get this subject started, can you define for us, and if you need to, give a little bit of an example, what is the holistic approach when we're talking marketing, and then how, I say, to really make it so that everybody's on the same page, how kind of give an example of how it's applied, just to, if you were bringing on a new client, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the whole thing is most businesses don't necessarily have just one goal that they're trying to accomplish, right? It's, as a business grows, it's really about, we need to work on lead gen, but we also need to work on our brand and the refreshment of that. And those all lead into each other. So it's not about just offering a single service and here's the task, we'll accomplish it, see you later. It's about growing with that business, understanding what that business is, and really getting into that nitty gritty to, who is their client? Who are they selling to? So then we need to understand what that means in all the different outlets. So, sometimes that fire starter is just, you need a brand refresh, you need a new website. But what holistically, what does that mean? Because that's not why you're not getting that business necessarily. You're not necessarily not getting business because your site doesn't look good. It's maybe the other aspects, the lead gen, the social media, the SEO, just getting people to your website. And it's really about meeting the clients where they're at, and not trying to fit them into a box that we provide. You're like, we have systems that have worked and templates that have worked with other clients. And so we'll apply that when we're working with a client. But it's not necessarily like, all right, here's your problem. Here's this box to fix that problem. Kind of a good example is kind of recently working with a client. We've been working with them for a few years, and they just signed on for some SEO services. And what we took into account is when you're talking SEO, sometimes you're thinking tracking that conversion, and here's the steps to track that conversion using GA4 and all that. Mm-hmm. First step, easy conversion tracking. All right, we're going to do some thank you pages, some confirmation pages for forms. Now we understand people going through the forms, X, Y, Z. And one of the conversions that we originally wanted to track, and the conversation was to track, that was people that are booking with them, people that want to book with them. So through this, they were like, well, you know what? It is important for us to track that, but we're actually way more important way more interested in just people booking and getting on our schedule. We want them to book. We want them to get on our schedule. It's an off-site scheduling platform. So we're not so much concerned about seeing who's clicking through those forms. So then, right, they were in that box of like, okay, here's how we want to track these conversions. And then it turned into, okay, meet you where you're at. Let's focus on the content, pushing people to book now. And then we're going to follow those conversions in a different route. We're going to be more concerned about content and what people are seeing on the site, how to use your site. So that kind of
okay. So often when business owners and stuff are looking at their marketing, they're zeroing in on one particular aspect. And the thing is if you're taking a holistic approach to it, you're looking at multiple things to deal with it, right? It's not just I need conversions. That's too simplistic. We all need that. Great, granted. But how are you actually getting them there? That's the issue, that you might be tackling. And so you're looking at the bigger picture. You're looking at the original source that they're coming from. Where are they landing on the pages? What are they seeing there? What is attracting to them, attracting them to submit, but also what's maybe turning them off? What does that experience for the customer, or potential customer look like? And even when you get into branding and stuff like that, how are you looking across the board? So it's taking a sort of a bigger picture approach to it to be able to see everything that they're seeing. Because often, I say, I've talked with a few people on funnels and stuff, and to me, funnels can be, that's a very simplistic approach. You have the top of the funnel, and then you have the middle, and then you have the bottom, which is the conversion piece of it and stuff. But it's assuming that everybody is siloed, and they see nothing else. They just see whatever the initial, hook was, what was the, to get them into the funnel to begin with. So you have that top, approach. And when we're looking at it holistically, we're looking at it as being a bigger picture, seeing that they're going to travel around. I always like the, landing pages, I think, are always a really good, subject when it kind of comes to this, because you have two forms of landing pages typically, and it comes down to we put in the header or we don't. And not putting it in there, which is appropriate in some cases, assumes that you're going to be able to make the conversion happen on that page versus allowing the header to be in there with the idea that the conversion may come somewhere else because you're allowing them to navigate.
And that's a good point in the sense of we kind of call them two different things. There's the segmenting pillar of a landing page that it's an internal landing page. You're still going to link throughout your website. You're still going to find it. So if you want to segment by state or location in general, people can still get there from your website. Whereas the landing page, maybe headerless, is something that maybe you're running ads to, something you're not getting to it through the site. And just what that really means for that type of landing page. If you're running an ad to a landing page, you're really, the goal is the conversion right there. You're trying to get them to fill out that form, follow that CTA, whatever that is. Whereas the pillar page is just more, it's segmenting to be more clear of what's offered in that certain location, just based off that example.
Yeah, like I say, because you could be, running paid ads or something with I say, and it can depend really on what type of business. Like you say, keeping everybody in a, stuck on that page and getting them to take action is appropriate in some cases. But, if you're a service business or something and you offer multiple things, you want people potentially to look around because, to see what else you have to offer, because there might be more opportunity, that you'll have for business with them. If they know that you're capable of more, it may be that they need some additional things that, while they might not be included in how they got, onto your site, but there are some stuff that they're thinking that they need and you actually offer. But if you silo it like that, like say, if you're only thinking kind of one-dimensionally, hey, this is what we offer, then the problem can be that you miss an opportunity because they're looking for somebody else that offers these other things. Mm-hmm. And you do, but you didn't tell them. So if we're thinking holistically, we want a much broader view. Look at all the pieces, that are going on. So like, how do you encourage, clients to approach that? So if you kind of put a methodology to it, it said, hey, okay, you're going to start here and then you're going to do this and you're going to do this. So how do you kind of, I guess, coach them to get it, to look at a broader picture? Yeah.
So it's an interesting aspect to start that conversation, because that conversation evolves as you go. Because, like, to your point, maybe they just need a new logo. They're not even thinking about a website or anything like that. So there's always going to be that strategy conversation, that kickoff conversation of, okay, you need a logo. What are you planning? What do you want to do with this logo? Oh, you need collateral that you're going to be doing with that. Okay, where are you going to have this collateral? How are you going to have access to this collateral? So the strategy, it breaks down into strategy and production. And to quote kind of one of our clients and friends, there's the thinky think, and then there's the doy do.
That's a good one.
And ever since he said it to us, we're just like, yeah, exactly. That's the two aspects. And it's that the first step is always going to be that thinky think. So let's have that conversation. Let's see where you're at. You need a logo already. What are you going to do with that logo? How are you going to use that logo? How do you store that logo? Sometimes it's just simple questions of how do you take care of your filing system? That opens up a whole nother path of like, oh, okay, well, we just use our file folders on our computer. Okay, perfectly fine. What about all the rest of your business materials? So it's getting down to the smaller things that maybe that isn't on top of mind for them. But asking that next question gets them to, we do need a solution for this problem that we didn't even know we had that problem. Mm-hmm. So, it's trying to teach them to be proactive instead of reactive to a situation. So what does that necessarily mean? That's just, we need a logo. How are you going to display that logo? Do you have a website? We have a Wix website. Okay. How is that working for you? Is that, are you able to access that? Are you able to use it the way that you want to use it? And then just evolving the conversation every step of that way and understanding, discovering new problems that need solutions.
I think your example, like logos, are a great example for this, because when you're designing, whether you're a startup or an existing business that's doing, a refresh on your brand and such, and you're doing your logo, there are so many ways that you can use a logo, and you have to think beyond the image that you're looking at, whatever that finished product is, because before you're finished, you have to consider all those uses. Like you mentioned, you have, potentially print materials. It could be, electronic material, PDFs and things like that, that you're going to use it in. And depending on the shape, of it, depending on the color palette that you're going to use, you can either have it really broad or actually limit yourself, because you could pick some colors that, if you think about the combination later and how you use them in different places, can be really hard to use. Mm-hmm. Same thing goes with like say the shapes and stuff. Websites are always the best example for shapes. Some logos are horrible in the headers, and because they only allow if you make a logo that's going to be really tall, you make the header really tall, and so you have to consider, do you need alternate versions, including, you could need an all white version because you're going to use it a different way, but the shape can actually matter, a great deal on logos, and the mistake I always see people make is they'll want to put some text into it that is beyond the name and stuff. And I get that, but can you even read it? Right. Like on a way, the simplest thing is if you had to put it on a billboard Could you read it driving by? You know, and in so many cases you wouldn't be able to do it either because it's too small a font or it's too much text and you can't do it quickly. You know, so I think that is a great example because it's the one thing you have to look at from all different angles.
And to build off that, like, so you're talking billboard, but even thinking smaller to cell phones. Everyone is on checking out the website. So if you build, if the idea is we only need a logo, all right, but are you thinking next steps of when you do need a website? Because like you said, if they have a tall logo, on how are you going to convert that down to a mobile size? So, you know, it's all about optimizing and asking those questions to make sure that we are thinking, you know, 5 steps ahead. Maybe we're not coming up with a solution for 5 steps ahead, but we're touching on it. We're thinking about that.
Yeah, because, you know, in the case of branding or a campaign and stuff, there's a lot of different possibilities of how something might be used, you know. So if you're starting in your marketing and you say, okay, well, how's my brand, you know, how's that logo and the use of it going to work now if I put it into my campaign? If I put it onto the website, like I say, it could be the colors that are going to, you know, in different uses might not look very good, you know. Sometimes, so one of the things too that really kind of comes up with logos is backgrounds. You know, like what are you going to have to, you know, like, do you have an alternative color that is not part of the logo, but is your standard, you know, like a lot of people use grays and stuff like that, that you can put in, you know, because if you design your website, maybe the colors aren't appropriate, but you need a complementary color that then actually becomes part of your brand, even if it's not in there. So there's a lot of extra things whenever you're looking at any piece of your marketing, you need to take time to consider it. That's your holistic, you know, approach, because you're looking, you know, beyond what's basically obvious and right in front of your face to all of the things that aren't so obvious.
Yeah. You know, and kind of, so what that kind of entails, those, what holistic really means to us is there's the brand. That's always going to be important. The brand is going to help drive some of those future things. It's going to help drive the lead generation and the overall validation of who you are. To, you know, it's because it's not necessarily important to an incoming client what your brand looks like, but it validates that you're able to, like, what you are saying you are. So the brand is important. What the website is, how your operations are, what your current web presence is, what your social media is, really picking apart each of those things that exist already to evolve it to that next step, and paying attention to where that is for you.
Okay, so now let's take this approach a step further. Yeah, let's talk as it applies to your competition, because, you know, you're going to have, if you're going beyond, so you're looking at all of the other things that may be affected if you're doing, like, say, brand campaign, touch points and stuff that you might have. Okay, so your competition is part of that holistic approach too, in considering them, and what they are doing. So, what do you see on that end? What are, like, considerations, that business owners should be looking at, and saying, okay, I'm about to do this. I should be also looking at what these others are doing in these areas.
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question, because it's what we think internally is there's kind of 2 things that I'm going to say is pay attention to trends. It is good to be following your competition and cooperating within that, because it does make sense to pay attention to what others are doing. And if that's working for them, adapt, learn, get to that point as well, get to a similar level. And then the second thought that's in my head is you really need to know how to do something correctly before you can start breaking it down and doing it your own ways, like a new way. So you need to know what you're able to break before you start breaking it. Yeah. So I think that's what paying attention to your competition is. It's not, we like cooperation as opposed to competition, but that's also just not always a realistic view, right?
Yeah.
There are people that are trying to get your same clients. They're trying to get the same prospects and do the same things you're doing, but they're trying to do it better. And the thing is, we're all in this world doing this, and kind of none of us really know what we're doing. We're all just trying to pick up those pieces as it comes across us.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Well, okay, so I can kind of give a local example of how you're considering your competition. So we have two really big, like, HVAC, plumbing / type companies in the area that if you were to look and say, well, they've done really well, what have they done right? How would I emulate that a little bit and stuff? We go back to logos with this. There's two distinct things that make them stand out. One company, and they're both been around a long time, so they've had plenty of time to build up and stuff. But you take the average, plumbing or HVAC company and stuff, and most of them are not the most memorable. Okay, and it might be their family name or whatever that they're how they named it. They really haven't done anything that stands out. If it's heating and air, they've got something that's a thermostat related piece in their logo and stuff. But there are two that are fairly sizable. One uses a smiley face in their logo, and that's everywhere you go that it's been incorporated. So they've taken a much broader approach to it. I mean, it's not just on their logo, like on their website and stuff. It's on billboards. It's on their trucks. It's on everything. And, I say, if I see the smiley face, I know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
And then there's another one, though. So one's named Hiller Plumbing. Neither one of these are clients. But, I'd love to have them as clients. They're large companies. But one is Hiller Plumbing. They've got the smiley face. The other is Roscoe Brown. Okay, and that sounds like family name, right? Okay, well, it is, and I think at some point there was a Roscoe Brown, but that dude's probably been dead for at least 2 decades. Okay, but what they did, and like I say, I'm not even sure if it's true, but what I can always remember is their logo. I don't even remember what the exact logo is, but what I remember is part of their branding is an old dude that they call Roscoe Brown, and it might be the original founder or something, and they basically made almost a character sketch, out of him and stuff, and he's on all of the trucks. So, whatever they put out, they're standing out in the marketplace, and that's the point of paying attention to competition, because what they've done is created something for themselves that in its own way, even if they're just a local company, and they are fairly large local companies, but they're iconic in that way that they're always going to be remembered. And so if you're looking at how do I, because they're running those, those images and stuff as part of their marketing in their, on their trucks everywhere. And so if I see either one, and I'm sure it's for pretty much the entire city, and most of Middle Tennessee where I'm at, you see them, you know who they are. Mm-hmm. That's the point of looking at your competition, because they're taking that broader approach to it. Right.
Yeah. And that is absolutely part of that conversation too, of what do you want? Because it is easy for someone to say, we want to build something like that. We want to be recognized by something in that same nature. But then the question turns into, okay, but does that fit into what you are doing already? Does that make sense? Do we need to break the box in that sense of okay, you want that, well, then you need to focus your marketing to make that possible for yourselves, instead of oh, we want that, we want to emulate that, we want to do that same thing. But if you're not going to put in that same kind of effort where it's on everything, it's part of your brand, then it's not worth taking that path, right?
Right. Well, and those companies put in the thought at some point in time, long ago, into what does this look like from a broader perspective? They said, and I'm sure, I say they didn't start out big, right? They started out probably one truck, at some point, and eventually they put together everything with that, in mind, including their colors and, everything. And now it's like I say, it's become where it's extremely recognizable. Same thing with large brands like Apple and McDonald's and stuff like that. The idea being is that when they went and did it, they looked at what makes them more recognizable in the marketplace, and then how do they utilize it in other places. Yeah. And like I say, the same thing goes with, if you were just putting a campaign together for social media and stuff, the idea would be, what assets actually do you have within your organization? What helps you stand out? Not just, hey, let's slap an ad together and start running it and see if we get something.
Right. And that's an interesting aspect, like you're saying, on social media is to, what is the voice that you want your brand to have? What is, is it going to be more operational? Are you, depending on what your company is, are you manufacturing? And it's not really, you're not trying to be funny and get just the clicks of like, oh, look at the staff goofing off or something. That works for people. But, are you operational, or are you going to be educational, or are you going to stick to just, here's every day in the life of this company? There's different paths to take, and you consider that as part of that conversation and where it evolves to.
Yeah, it's like you take a look at, kind of where you are as an organization. Do you consider yourself a leader in your industry? Do you, are you using, I say a lot of marketing things have like other side benefits. Potentially it could be that, it supports your hiring. You're not doing anything specific. It's because, from a hiring standpoint, but because of how you're running your campaign, you are bringing up the awareness of your company. And if you're doing it in a right way, other people say, hey, I want to work for this company because of what they're doing. Yeah. And it looks like it's, because it's not just, hey, they goof off in the office or something. Yeah. So you have to consider that, if you're, doing your messaging, like I say, if you're utilizing social media, what does that messaging look like? So that there is consistency, you build a brand voice, those types of things. Like I say, everything about marketing and the way you're doing things, there's always more to it. Yeah. And that circles back to the meeting the client where they're at, right? Making sure that we're not trying to just offer, here's all these other solutions that we could talk about. It's meeting them where they're at and making sure that we can fit into what they're trying to do. I feel like, that kind of makes me think of an example that, we're client first, right? That's altering that language, what that means. And I'm sure a lot of people have run into this. We have a client that uses Monday specifically to keep themselves organized. So when we're offering solutions for, like, maybe how do we organize these tasks that we need to get done? How do we schedule these things out? Because when you're a client, you're thinking about your business and you're like, well, these things are all important. I want to get them all done now. But it takes time figuring out what that path actually is. So this client uses Monday. We're going to work our solutions to fit into that task. And sometimes that means evolving out of that system, based on what their needs are. But if they're using Monday, they like using Monday, our solutions are going to fit within that box for them. So that it doesn't need to break the mold. It doesn't need to screw them up from where they're at. They're still able to do it the way that they're familiar, but it's still helping them along that path. Yeah. So at the end of the day, like I say, when you're looking, if you're taking a holistic approach to anything, you want to be looking at a bigger picture. If you're doing don't leave things on such a simplistic thing, so, because we get clients all the time, I'm sure you do, that are, as simple as, I want more leads. Okay. Well, who do you want more leads from? Do you have the capacity to handle more if you get them? How are you going to, if they, contact you, call you, are you going to be able to deal with that? And then, what are you going to offer them? Is there something specific? It could be as simple as, I want, somebody says, hey, I want to bring in more business. Think of a restaurant, right? So, they're like, hey, nobody knows we're here. Okay, great. I'll get more people in the door. No problem. Except that, I'm kind of like, I need a deal. Okay, let's put together a coupon. But I'm going to ask you the question, okay, we use this offer to get them in the door. I know you didn't make money on that. What did you do to get them to come back in the door without the offer?
Yeah.
Do you have that figured out?
Exactly.
so, and like I say, it's looking at the bigger picture. I work with some garage door, companies and stuff. And, in their case, it could be, they want to do advertising for a specific product. And I'm like, okay, just because you have some sort of deal on this, product, is there enough market demand? Have you actually looked to see if there would be enough people willing to buy this product to make it worth advertising?
Right.
Just because you can offer it, or the dealer that you get it from is giving you some incentive, doesn't mean that that's going to be the right thing. So there's just so much to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so people need to stop looking at just the obvious, dive into it.
Yeah. So that's a good point about deals and like talking restaurants and specific coupons or deals to get them in the door. But to like broaden that up to touch on what you were talking about capacity, I recently had a conversation with somebody as a fencing company, and they were talking about, we're not really interested in doing any website work. If our website was any better, I would never see my family. We're already booked out. We're already booked out through 2024.
Yeah.
Okay, so understandable. You're not as interested in talking about a website refresh or whatever they thought that conversation was leading to. But let's talk about other solutions. If you're booked out like that, do you need more staff? Do you need help recruiting?
Yeah.
Is that one of the problems? Do you need help with your scheduling systems and the organization of how you're working with that? Like all these things do merge in together, where sometimes it does make sense of brand refresh, website refresh, all those, maybe that's where that leads. But when you hear the problem is actually, we're just at capacity. We can't take on any more. We can't do anything more. So let's focus on that then. You're telling me the problem is capacity. Let's work through that.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's actually a good point too, is they say that they're at capacity. Okay, great. So that's the perfect time that if you're going to do these things, that's the perfect time to do them. Because if you're at capacity, you have the resources to get them done, and you're doing them with the idea in mind that at some point you might not be at capacity, in which case you want to be able to have things in place. Mm-hmm. So it's, we don't have to turn on a marketing campaign right now, but if there are other elements of your marketing that need fixing and improving, you do it when you don't need it. It's kind of like, I say, go get credit when you don't need the credit because it's easier.
Yeah.
So you do those kinds of things. That's when you should be looking at it, because you can take your time. You're not worried about it suddenly turning around your business or making some dramatic improvement or anything. Business is about incremental gains, typically over time. It's not, I say a bunch of, shoot for the moon stuff and hope it works out. And then if it doesn't, okay, now we try something else, So that's when they want to be doing stuff. And then, how do you handle more capacity? Because you're right. You could do, it could be recruitment marketing, especially depending on the industry. Do you have high turnover with employees already? Are there things that can be done there? And hey, I'm a marketing company, so there are certain things I'm obviously not going to be able to help with, but there are some that I might be able to, I say, because, if you could, attract a few more qualified candidates, would you want to do it? And marketing companies often help with recruitment.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So what would be your final, takeaways, from it? If, from a business owner's standpoint, what should they be really focused on?
What should a company be focused on in the holistic? So, I think the goal is to always get things to be easy. You want your site, your company to be working for you. You have people checking out your site at night when you're not operating hours, things like that. You want it to be easy to understand what you're offering. You want it to be easy to access what you're offering, and you want an easy flow of how to get from point A to point B. So if you are a service-based company, you want a site user, a social media visitor, you want them to understand where they need to go in order to get access to you. Because you don't want it to be a puzzle. You don't want you want it You want it to be very easy to understand in the flow across all media to make sense for who you are as a company. And that's what we look at when we're working with a client, is that we want to make sure it all works together. Operations, branding, social media, your presence, all of that works together. And we bring that to a whole. That's what we help strategize before we start doing the do we do.
Okay, well, this has been a great conversation. Mike, we've been talking, taking a holistic approach to your marketing, looking at the bigger picture. Don't be focused on just one aspect of the things you're doing, because a lot of it plays into each other. Mike, how would people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can find us at shantytowndesign.com. Or if you just want to hit us up on email, it's info@shantytowndesign.com. My wife and I own the company. We were really easy to get a hold of, and we're paying attention to what's happening. So shantytowndesign.com is probably the best starting point. You can hit us up on chat. We'll respond there too.
Okay. Well, I'm Cash Miller. I'm the host of Marketing Masters, the CEO of Titan Digital. It's been another great episode, and thank you for joining us.